She doesn't belong here. Could this quiet woman hold a deadly secret? The words hang in the air as Sarah Mitchell steps into the flight simulator briefing room. Civilian clothes, 34, invisible. Laughter fades when she doesn't flinch. Captain Morrison scoffs at her concern about the malfunctioning system. Maybe try the gift shop. A smug voice quips, drawing cruel chuckles. Sarah stays silent, her back steady, her eyes steady. No one sees the shadow behind them, the weight she carries like armor. These are boys playing war. She's been through the real thing, and they're about to find out why you never underestimate the quiet one in the room. What would you do if everyone underestimated you based on your appearance? Drop your country in the comments and stick around. This woman's about to teach these hotshots a lesson they'll never forget. Welcome to Graceful Valor Stories. Dara Mitchell's public identity reads like a textbook case of midlife reinvention, carefully constructed to deflect attention from the woman she used to be. Recently divorced, she moved into base housing with nothing more than a suitcase and a determination to start over. Her modest apartment is decorated with furniture from discount stores and photographs of places she claimed to have visited as a tourist. She tells anyone who asks that she's catching up on missed dreams, that she always wanted to fly but never had the chance because of family obligations and financial constraints. Her enrollment in the civilian flight training program seems like the desperate grasp of someone trying to prove something to herself or maybe to an ex-husband who never believed in her potential. She keeps to herself, eating lunch alone at the far corner of the cafeteria. Her eyes focused on aviation manuals while conversations float around her like water around a stone. To the casual observer, she appears unremarkable. Another middle-aged woman trying to recapture youth through adventure. Her quiet demeanor suggesting someone who has spent most of her life in the background. But 8 years ago, a classified CIA file bore a different story. Stamped with red letters that read, "Spectre terminated." The footage buried in government vaults tells a different tale. Shadowy figures moving through hostile territory with precision that defies human capability. A voice in the darkness coordinating operations that saved countless lives without ever seeking recognition. Her former handler's words, recorded in a debriefing that will never see daylight, paint a picture of their most effective operative, someone who could disappear into any crowd and emerge when the world needed her most. The reason for her retirement remains classified, but those who know speak in hushed tones about a partner named Marcus, a brilliant operative who was also the man she planned to marry. The mission that ended everything was supposed to be routine. Extract a high-value target from a compromised safe house in Eastern Europe. But intelligence was wrong. Backup never arrived, and Marcus died in her arms. While she held off enemy forces with nothing but her sidearm and the kind of tactical brilliance that legends are made of, she chose anonymity over the Medal of Honor they wanted to give her. Disappeared into civilian life like smoke dissipating in the wind, leaving behind only whispers and legends that most people assume are exaggerated. The agency tried to bring her back 3 times. Each recruitment attempt meeting with polite but firm refusal from a woman who had given everything she had to give. She changed her name, created a new identity, and spent 8 years building a life that had nothing to do with classified operations or national security. The small details that separate Sarah from other students reveal themselves in moments of unconscious habit that trained observers would recognize immediately. She speaks softly, but there's an underlying steel in her voice that makes people listen more carefully than they intend to. The kind of authority that comes from having given orders in life or death situations. Her tactical awareness operates on autopilot. She automatically checks exits when entering any room. Assesses potential threats with the practiced eye of someone who survived by seeing danger before it saw her. Her muscle memory betrays years of training that no civilian flight program could provide. Perfect stance that distributes weight for maximum stability. Controlled breathing that keeps her heart rate steady under pressure. Movements that are economical and precise in ways that suggest combat experience. A small scar on her left temple hidden by the way she styles her hair tells a story of shrapnel from a grenade that should have killed her, but instead left her with a permanent reminder of mortality. She still unconsciously covers the tan line where her wedding ring used to be. A gesture that speaks of loss and the hope that time might heal wounds that run deeper than skin. The ring sits in a jewelry box in her apartment next to a photograph of Marcus that she can't bring herself to throw away but can't bear to display. Her presence here isn't about recapturing youth or proving anything to anyone. She needs pilot certification for a civilian contractor job, a simple requirement for what she hopes will be a simple, normal life, delivering supplies to remote locations. The job pays well, requires minimal human interaction, and most importantly, has nothing to do with the world of shadows and secrets that consumed 8 years of her life. She believes she's left Spectre behind forever, buried under layers of suburban anonymity and the mundane concerns of ordinary existence. She doesn't expect to be recognized, doesn't anticipate being tested, and certainly doesn't imagine that her past will reach out to claim her once again. The harassment begins subtly, the way institutional cruelty always does, with small slights that seem accidental but follow a pattern too consistent to be coincidental. On her first day, Sarah receives an assignment to Simulator Number 7, a machine that other students whisper about with knowing looks and sympathetic shakes of their heads. The oldest simulator in the facility. Its software hasn't been updated in years. Its controls stick at crucial moments, and its display screens flicker with the kind of electronic uncertainty that would terrify any pilot facing real emergency conditions. Equipment issues plague her training sessions. Hydraulic systems that fail during complex maneuvers, navigation displays that die just when she needs them most, communication systems that crackle with static whenever she tries to contact ground control. The pattern becomes clear quickly. Someone wants her to fail, and they're not particularly concerned with subtlety or plausible deniability. Day 2 brings social isolation, the kind of deliberate exclusion that feels like high school all over again, but cuts deeper because of the professional stakes involved. Group study sessions happen without her knowledge. Information about schedule changes somehow never reaches her. And lunch tables mysteriously fill up whenever she approaches with her tray. Conversations stop when she enters a room. Not out of respect, but from the kind of awkward silence that signals someone is the subject of gossip they're not supposed to hear. Captain Morrison publicly criticizes her civilian reflexes with the kind of theatrical disapproval that signals to everyone else that she's acceptable prey. His voice carries across the training floor so that maximum humiliation is achieved. Day 3 escalates to active sabotage when hotshot pilot Rick Patterson stages an accident during formation training, a maneuver that would have killed them both if Sarah hadn't reacted with reflexes that no civilian should possess. Patterson's Cessna suddenly banks hard left during a routine exercise, its wing missing her aircraft by inches in a move that flight instructors would call suicidal. The recovery maneuver Sarah executes is textbook perfect. The kind of flying that saves lives when everything goes wrong. But her skill only seems to anger Patterson more. He claims radio failure, insists the near collision was her fault, and Morrison backs him up with the kind of institutional solidarity that protects the guilty at the expense of the innocent. By day 4, anonymous notes appear in her locker, their message clear and cruel. Quit before you embarrass yourself. The handwriting is different on each note, suggesting a conspiracy rather than a single tormentor. A coordinated campaign designed to break her spirit through systematic psychological warfare. The systematic nature of the harassment reveals itself in small, telling details that catch the attention of those trained to notice patterns. Base Security Colonel Janet Hayes begins to notice things that don't add up about the quiet woman who keeps to herself and never complains about treatment that would have driven most people to file formal complaints. Sarah's situational awareness surpasses that of active military personnel. Her eyes constantly scan for threats in ways that suggest professional training. Her responses to unexpected situations are textbook perfect. Reactions that take most people years to develop, but seem to come naturally to her. If her psychological profile doesn't match the background check they have on file, the woman described in her civilian records is passive, unremarkable, someone who avoided confrontation and preferred the safety of routine. But the woman, Colonel Hayes observes, moves with the confidence of someone who has faced down serious threats and survived to tell about it. She unconsciously uses military time, tactical terminology slips into her speech when she's concentrating, and her emergency response during Patterson's manufactured crisis was flawless. The simulator malfunction that would have rattled any civilian pilot barely raises her heart rate, as if she's experienced far worse, and lived to tell about it. Her performance mysteriously improves despite the sabotage. Scores that should be impossible given the equipment failures and social pressure she faces daily. Colonel Hayes starts an unofficial investigation, making discreet inquiries that send ripples through channels most people don't know exist. The answers she receives are classified at levels that make her security clearance look like a library card. But one word comes back that changes everything. Spectre. The name alone is enough to make seasoned intelligence officers go quiet. A legend whispered about in the kind of briefings that don't officially exist. The painful memories that surface during her training sessions carry weight that threatens to break through her carefully constructed facade. Emotional landmines that explode without warning when the present too closely resembles the past she's trying to forget. The simulator malfunctions mirror Marcus' final mission. Moments when technology failed and human skill became the only thing standing between survival and catastrophe. She remembers his voice over the radio, calm and professional, even as enemy fire tore through the aircraft around him. His last words, a promise that he would see her again that was never kept. Patterson's reckless flying style reminds her of enemy tactics, the kind of unpredictable aggression that killed people she cared about and left her with nightmares that therapy couldn't touch. Morrison's dismissive attitude echoes agency bureaucrats who wouldn't listen to field reports, who made decisions from comfortable offices while operatives died in foreign soil because someone in Washington thought they knew better than the people actually doing the work. The isolation brings back memories of operating alone behind enemy lines. When backup was a luxury and survival depended on maintaining perfect composure under impossible pressure. She remembers nights spent in hostile territory. Her only company, the voice of her handler crackling through encrypted communications. The weight of responsibility for missions that could change the course of history. Morrison's frustration stems from being passed over for promotion repeatedly. His 20-year career is marked by competence, but never excellence. His bitterness finds an outlet in tormenting someone he perceives as weak and defenseless. His wife left him 2 years ago, taking their teenage daughter with her, and the empty house he returns to each night only fuels his resentment of anyone who seems to have their life together. Patterson represents everything wrong with privilege and entitlement. A wealthy senator's son who sees Sarah's presence as an insult to his inherited superiority. Someone who has never faced real consequences for his actions and believes that rules are suggestions that don't apply to people with the right connections. His flying is technically proficient, but lacks the judgment that comes from understanding that mistakes in aviation are often fatal. His confidence built on a foundation of money and influence rather than genuine skill. The system protects them both. Morrison's uncle commands the base, and Patterson's political connections reach into the highest levels of military hierarchy, creating a network of protection that makes them believe they're untouchable. But Sarah's calm demeanor begins to unsettle her tormentors. Her refusal to break or quit challenging their assumptions about power and vulnerability. She doesn't fight back in ways they expect. Doesn't file complaints or demand meetings with supervisors. Instead, maintaining the kind of professional composure that suggests she's dealing with irritating children rather than serious threats. Small acts of defiance emerge. Perfect scores on written tests despite the social pressure. Textbook emergency procedures that leave instructors speechless. And a quiet competence that makes other students gravitate toward her for help. She begins teaching struggling trainees in secret, sharing knowledge that no flight manual contains, wisdom earned through experiences that would break most people. Her methods are unorthodox but effective, focusing on the mental aspects of flying that separate good pilots from great ones. The moment of revelation arrives during an advanced combat simulation, a complex scenario designed to test reflexes and decision-making under extreme pressure that mimics real-world emergency conditions. Sarah sits in the simulator cockpit, her hands steady on controls that have been sabotaged to fail at the worst possible moment. The artificial engine noise fills her headphones as she navigates through a thunderstorm that would challenge experienced military pilots. The scenario is deliberately overwhelming. Multiple system failures, hostile aircraft, and weather conditions that would ground most commercial flights. When her personal phone begins to ring, the sound cuts through the artificial chaos like a blade. Its insistent tone demands attention that protocol absolutely forbids. The ringtone is simple, professional, the kind of sound that suggests official business rather than personal conversation. Morrison's voice explodes across the training floor, his anger at the breach of regulations echoing off the walls as he screams at her to turn off the device immediately, his face red with fury at what he perceives as flagrant disrespect for military discipline. Other students crane their necks to see what's happening. Their own simulations are forgotten as drama unfolds in real time. The kind of public humiliation that ends careers and becomes legendary among military communities. The caller identification display shows something that makes the blood drain from the faces of everyone close enough to read it. POTUS. The acronym hangs in the air like a physical presence. For letters that represent the most powerful office in the world. The room falls silent. The kind of absolute quiet that follows explosions when the human brain struggles to process information that doesn't fit established patterns and assumptions about reality. Sarah's response is calm, professional, carrying the weight of authority that no civilian should possess as she answers with words that change everything. This is Spectre. The name hits the room like a physical blow, a legend that most people assumed was exaggerated or fictional, suddenly given voice and substance. The president's voice, clear and unmistakable over the speakerphone, cuts through the silence like a sword through silk. We need you. North Korea's situation. How fast can you get to Washington? The words carry the weight of national emergency, the kind of crisis that makes headlines and changes the course of history. Her reply carries the weariness of someone who has already given everything she had to give. The exhaustion of someone who thought she had earned the right to a quiet life. I'm retired, Mr. President. The response from the most powerful office in the world is immediate and non-negotiable, delivered with the kind of authority that doesn't accept refusal. The Pentagon disagrees. Your country needs you. The conversation continues for another minute. Details that will never appear in any public record. References to capabilities and resources that exist in the shadows of government operations. When she finally hangs up, the silence in the room is deafening, broken only by the hum of electronic equipment and the sound of grown men trying to process what they've just witnessed. The environmental shift in the room is immediate and dramatic, like watching a movie scene where everything changes in the space of a single conversation. Morrison's face drains of color as the full implications of what he's witnessing crash over him like a tsunami. His worldview crumbles as he realizes he's been tormenting someone who could end his career with a single phone call. Patterson drops his coffee cup. The ceramic shattering on the floor and a sound that seems amplified in the sudden silence. His privileged background is suddenly meaningless in the face of genuine authority. Other trainees stare in shock, their minds struggling to reconcile the ordinary woman they've been dismissing, with the legend apparently speaking to the President of the United States on a first-name basis. Colonel Hayes enters the room with perfect timing, her arrival suggesting that Sarah's presence here was never as random as it appeared. Her salute is crisp and respectful as she addresses Sarah with the deference reserved for those who have earned it through blood and sacrifice. Ma'am, your classified briefing is ready. The formality of the address, the respect in her voice, the way she positions herself as clearly subordinate to someone who moments before was being treated as a joke. It all combines to create a moment of revelation that will be talked about for years. The transformation in Sarah herself is subtle but profound. Her posture straightens. The civilian mask she's worn for months finally drops to reveal the predator that has been hiding beneath suburban normality. Her voice changes. Command authority emerging from vocal cords that have been carefully modulated to project weakness and vulnerability. The kind of leadership presence that makes people want to follow orders even when they don't understand the reasoning behind them. The truth becomes clear with devastating simplicity. She's not just ex-military, she's legendary. Every mistake, every failure, every moment of apparent incompetence has been her holding back. Playing a role that protected everyone around her from the reality of who she really is. The woman who couldn't handle a simple simulator malfunction has been revealed as someone who coordinated international operations involving millions of lives and resources that most people can't even imagine. The room full of hotshot pilots suddenly realizes they've been mocking someone who could end their careers with a single phone call. Someone whose service record would make their accomplishments look like participation trophies earned at summer camp. Have you ever had to prove yourself in a situation like this? Share your story below. The Pentagon's offer arrives wrapped in the language of national security and patriotic duty. But Sarah negotiates from a position of strength that surprises even veteran bureaucrats who thought they understood power dynamics. The classified briefing room where the conversation takes place is sterile and windowless, filled with the kind of technology that doesn't officially exist and personnel whose names don't appear on any public roster. She agrees to consult on training protocols for the next generation of covert operatives. But she won't return to active field operations, her voice carrying the finality of someone who has already paid the ultimate price for service to the country. Her conditions are specific and non-negotiable. She continues her civilian training, maintains her cover identity, and operates with complete autonomy in reforming the programs that have failed so many promising candidates. The negotiation takes hours, involving conference calls with officials whose titles are classified in budgets that exist in the shadows of government accounting. But now she's authorized to correct the systemic problems that have turned military training into a hazing ritual instead of genuine preparation for service. Her mandate came directly from the highest levels of government. Morrison confronts her privately the next day, his voice shaking with a mixture of anger and fear as he demands an explanation for the deception. His worldview is still struggling to process the reality of what she represents. Sarah's response carries the quiet authority of someone who has faced down international terrorists and survived assassination attempts. Her words were chosen carefully to offer dignity rather than humiliation. I never lied about being ordinary. You assumed ordinary meant weak. The distinction is crucial. She never claimed to be helpless. Never pretended to be incompetent. Simply allowed others to make assumptions based on appearance and demeanor. She doesn't humiliate him publicly. Doesn't use her newfound leverage to destroy his career. Instead, offering him the chance to learn from someone who has actually been where he pretends to have been. The private conversation lasts for over an hour. Her patient explanation of real leadership principles and military values served as both education and redemption for a man who lost his way in bitterness and frustration. Patterson attempts to leverage his political connections against her. His privileged background makes him believe that influence can overcome any obstacle. His father's phone calls to Pentagon officials met with polite but firm explanations that this situation is above his pay grade. Sarah's quiet response cuts through his bluster like a knife through paper. My connections start with the president and go down from there. The threat is implicit but unmistakable. She's offering him the chance to gracefully retreat from a fight he cannot win, to learn from his mistakes rather than be destroyed by them. The real experience sharing begins gradually as Sarah introduces concepts that don't exist in traditional military training manuals, but are essential for survival in the kind of operations that never make the news. She teaches combat psychology, the mental frameworks that separate survivors from casualties in life or death situations, the ability to make crucial decisions when adrenaline and fear are trying to shut down rational thought. Her failures during training exercises become teaching moments. Demonstrations of tactical adaptations that saved lives in situations where conventional wisdom would have led to disaster. The simulator malfunction that seemed like incompetence was actually a masterclass in aircraft recovery. The kind of flying that keeps people alive when every system fails simultaneously. She explains her seemingly inexplicable assistance to struggling trainees with the warrior's creed that guided her through years of classified operations. Leave no one behind. The phrase carries weight that goes beyond military doctrine. It's the philosophy that cost her Marcus. The belief that drove her to hold that position until everyone else was safe, even when it meant watching the man she loved die in her arms. Her methods are unorthodox, developed through trial and error in environments where mistakes cost lives, refined through experiences that would break most people and create legends from the survivors. The transformation spreads through the training program like wildfire as students begin to understand that survival isn't about individual excellence, but about collective strength. That the pilot who thinks only about personal glory is the pilot who gets people killed. Morrison becomes a reluctant ally, his bruised ego slowly healing as he realizes he's learning from someone who has forgotten more about combat than he ever knew. His 20-year career suddenly seemed like preparation for this opportunity to really understand what military service means. Patterson faces a harder reckoning, forced to confront the reality that his privileged background means nothing in the face of genuine competence and sacrifice. His father's influence suddenly seemed hollow when compared to the respect earned through blood in service. The other trainees form a protective circle around Sarah. Their initial mockery transformed into the kind of loyalty that emerges when people recognize true leadership and the willingness to sacrifice for others. The base culture itself begins to change. Gossip and hazing are replaced by mutual support and genuine attempts to help each other succeed rather than fail. The twist that emerges in the final weeks of training recontextualizes everything that came before, revealing layers of purpose and planning that no one suspected. Sarah reveals that she knew about the sabotage from the beginning, that her apparent struggles were actually data collection exercises designed to identify weaknesses in the training system that have been destroying promising careers for years. Every failure was carefully orchestrated. Every moment of apparent incompetence was part of a larger investigation into the institutional problems that have plagued military aviation training for decades. She documented everything. The equipment sabotage, the social isolation, the systematic abuse that drives good people away from service when the country needs them most. The Pentagon authorized her infiltration after receiving complaints from multiple sources about hazing, discrimination, and the kind of systematic abuse that destroys morale and wastes taxpayer resources on training programs that produce trauma rather than competence. She's been building a case that will result in widespread changes to training protocols and personnel decisions. Her months of apparent suffering actually serve as evidence gathering for reforms that will help thousands of future pilots. The recognition that she's been testing them rather than being tested by them fundamentally shifts the power dynamics that have defined their relationships for months. Sarah Mitchell refuses the media attention that comes with her revealed identity, declining interviews and photo opportunities with the same quiet determination that has defined her approach to everything else in her carefully constructed civilian life. The reporters who manage to track her down find someone who has no interest in fame or recognition, telling them with polite but firm finality that she's not there to be famous, she's there to teach. The choice between Pentagon glory and classroom instruction is easy for someone who has already proven everything she needs to prove to herself and has learned that the most important victories are often the ones that no one ever hears about. She turns down book deals, movie rights, and speaking engagements that would have made her wealthy and famous, choosing instead to remain in the shadows where she can do the most good. The final scene unfolds in a new classroom where Sarah teaches a fresh group of students who don't know her full story, where she can shape the next generation of pilots without the baggage of legend and reputation interfering with the learning process. Her methods are demanding but fair. Her expectations are high but achievable. Her respect earned through competence rather than celebrity. Her wedding ring is gone. The tan line finally faded. Symbolic of her readiness to move forward into a future that honors the past without being trapped by it. That remembers Marcus without being defined by the loss. Morrison's public apology comes during graduation ceremonies. His words were carefully chosen to acknowledge the lesson everyone learned without revealing classified details. Sometimes the strongest among us are the quietest. The speech is brief but genuine. His acknowledgement of error serves as both personal redemption and institutional reform, a signal that the culture of hazing and discrimination that defined the old program has been officially retired. Sarah watches from the back of the room, a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth as she sees real change taking root in an institution that desperately needed it. Her sacrifice finally produced the kind of results that make the cost worthwhile. Patterson approaches her afterward, his handshake genuine for perhaps the first time in his privileged life. His words carry the weight of someone who has learned humility the hard way. Thank you for not destroying me when you could have. The acknowledgement is important. She had the power to end his career, to humiliate him publicly, to make him pay for every cruel word and dangerous stunt. Instead, she chose to teach him, to show him what real strength looks like, to give him the chance to become someone better than he was. The final image is simple but profound. Sarah walking across the base at sunset, her silhouette blending with other instructors as she becomes part of something larger than herself. Her legend dissolves back into the ordinary world where she has always been most comfortable. She's extraordinary, but she chooses to be ordinary, finding strength in service rather than recognition. Power in teaching rather than commanding. Fulfillment in helping others succeed rather than celebrating her own achievements. The most powerful thing about her isn't what she's accomplished, but that she doesn't need to prove it anymore. That she has found peace in a life that values contribution over credit. Honor doesn't need to be spoken. It speaks for itself through actions taken when no one is watching. through sacrifice made without expectation of reward. Through the quiet dignity of someone who has seen the worst of humanity and chosen to respond with the best of herself. Who do you think deserves more recognition for their hidden talents? Let us know where you're watching.